Yeah, it's live. We are live now.
Hi, and good evening, one and all present out here. First and foremost, apologies for the few minutes of delay. That is because of the technical glitches. However, we're right here, and it's indeed a pleasure once again to connect with each one of you who have seated right in front of your screens. Well, today is indeed a very, very important topic. I think probably the most important topic if you are on the journey of CKD, because today we have with us a panel of doctors and a nutritional specialists to talk to us on this topic, nutritional secrets. But before we dive into our session today, let me take you down memory lane where the story all began 5 years in 2017. The talk on the nutritional secret, the launch of the book, happened with a panel of doctors who approved the book. And finally, we launched our first book in April 2019. Before I actually kickstart this evening's program, I'd like to be grateful and say thank you to Manipal Hospital and NU Hospital, who were the first set of doctors who actually joined us on board to get our thoughts together on the nutritional secret books. So wherever you are this evening, lots of gratitude to Manipal Hospital and NU Hospital for joining us and making this dream a dream come true that's touching the lives of many people, just not in India, but across the globe. And the lovely people that you see, the beautiful ladies that you see on the screen are the ladies who actually contributed and written their thoughts that's helping each one of us stay healthy on the journey of CKD. So without further delay, let's move on to what we have in store for you in this particular session. So first we have with us Dr. Vishwanath from Manipal Hospital. And today, Dr. Vishwanath is going to be talking to us on the importance of a role of a dietitian for a patient. So Dr. Vishwanath, may I request you to kindly take over.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. At the outset, I would like to thank KWF for the opportunity given for me. And in fact, I would like to congratulate KWF doing excellent work with respect to support to the group, especially when people feel lost, they feel definitely connected with your team. So second thing, I would like to congratulate Dr. Gulati for being elected as president of ISN. Definitely, patients with kidney diseases have a lot of unmet needs. Many times they look lost as if what to eat and with respect to nutritional care. This is true all over the world, and nutritional management is not there in the curriculum of most of the nephrologists. If you look at young nephrologists in their DNB curriculum, nutrition is only one small chapter which they might not have read. Unless their mentors and their teachers have a passion for nutrition, it may be lost in their curriculum. And renal dietitians are going to address this gap, and definitely they will be rightfully addressing patients' needs, and it is the need of the hour. Adequate nutrition and dietary support is of fundamental importance in all phases of kidney disease, be it early CKD, late CKD, nephrotic syndrome, or a transplant. And especially in a dialysis patient, it is very, very crucial to make sure they get appropriate nutrition and they are met with appropriate nutritional requirement. That's where the nutritionist will come in. Diabetic kidney disease and kidney stone disease requires specific nutritional approaches, and it is not like one size fits all. So nutrition should be blended with the disease and what is the stage of the kidney disease. Both in CKD prevention and early stages of CKD, the current evidence has shown that there is significant importance of healthy diet, and goal of nutrition therapy in advanced CKD is known to all of us. And definitely it goes a long way in preserving the nutritional status of the patient and also delaying the dialysis. And as we all know, most of our patients would like to delay their dialysis as late as possible. This is very much true with elderly people with CKD on dialysis, where they may not eat anything and they develop muscle wasting, which leads to again frail. So in fact, this frailty has been now recognized as a significant risk factor with respect to even morbidity and mortality. Frailty is equivalent to a cardiovascular disease. If somebody is very frail, not nutritionally well maintained, the risk of death and mortality and hospital admission also is very much higher. That's where nutritionists will be able to definitely spend more time and disallay their misconceptions. There are a lot of misconceptions in general population and dialysis patients. The first thing anybody comes to us and we declare CKD, they'll tell what to eat. More important should be what not to eat, because many of them, what happens, the minute you declare CKD, the families may stop giving them everything, including milk, dal, roti. Then what do they eat? Many times we see people who are 70 kgs, 80 kgs coming back to us with 30, 40 kgs. That is really pathetic, and they may not do well even if you initiate on dialysis. That's where our nutritionist will definitely play a significant role. And there are a lot of variations in the geography. North is different, south is different, east, west. So that is where nutritionists will be able to assess the patient and see what nutrition fits them well. And definitely on dialysis, nutritionist role is crucial with respect to potassium, phosphorus, and also in our country where people are only 2 times a week dialysis and they come back with emergencies like hyperkalemia. And nutritional issues are very important with respect to post-donation, renal donation, and also pre-donation in a living donor. And most of the times in our country, transplant is chosen so that they can eat everything. It is not very true. And many times we need to tell them, just because you had a transplant, it doesn't mean you go and eat everything and develop some post-transplant diabetes, atherosclerosis, and cardiac disease. So that's the reason. Probably now I think our nutritionists are becoming more and more smarter. They are developing a lot of approaches with respect to telehealth and reinforcing. And actually many times we need to take patients away from the Google, because they might have read so much that they will stop eating whatever is available protein, especially vegetarians. And most of the Indians are vegetarians. Even non-vegetarians, they eat non-vegetarian only once in a week, not like 3 times a week. So that's where the nutritionist will come in. Nutritional issues in nephrology, especially dialysis and transplantation, are very, very important with respect to patient care. Once again, I would like to thank KWS for this opportunity, and all the best for our nutritionists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vishwanath. I actually have a question for you, but I'm going to have Dr. Avinash speak, and then we'll come back to the Q&A session. So we now move on to our next speaker. We have Dr. Avinash with us already in the past, and I think something that catches my attention for Dr. Avinash is during the fitness week, how he actually amazingly joined us to become a part of Living Healthy on CKD and creating this amazing awareness to the patient community. And today we have Dr. Avinash actually going to be talking to us on when would the doctors actually send the patient to a dietitian. So Doctor, on to you.
Thank you, Miriam, and good evening to everyone. I'm really glad to be on this platform with two really eminent nephrologists, and especially congratulations to Dr. Gulati for his present post on ISN. And the dietitians who have been involved and have done such a wonderful job of making this book a reality, and now with so many in different languages. So I had a special association with Kidney Warriors Foundation much before it became officially Kidney Warriors Foundation. And this was a meeting which we had many years back, I think 8 or more years back, when Ms. Vasundhara was here in Pune. And that is when I came with a cake when we had a meeting when we had the Kidney Warriors Foundation. And the name has stuck, and I'm so glad that it has grown to such an organization, not just nationally but internationally known. Coming to the topic which was told, when is the right time for a patient to go to a nutritionist or a dietitian? Actually, it's never too early, never too late. Whenever possible, we need to send the patient to a dietitian counselor. But one reason is that the nephrologists are fairly occupied with a lot of patients, so the kind of questions and detail in which a nephrologist will not be able to explain which a dietitian can. Second thing is patients' nutrition requirements change with time. A lot of the things might repeat because Dr. Vishwanath has very nicely put a lot of features, the topics which need to be covered. But yes, when a patient is in early CKD, late CKD, what his parameters are, whether he's on hemodialysis, whether he's going for transplant, how his albumin levels are. There are so many factors. But when a patient is diagnosed with CKD, the only line they remember, protein नहीं खाना है, protein बंद कर दो डाइट में से. Not realizing that it is not low protein diet is a Western concept, it's not an Indian concept. And if we look at our Indian diet, it's already a low protein and a high carbohydrate diet. So most of us probably would not require the kind of protein restriction which many of the patients follow. And a lot of them probably look at having a no protein diet rather than a low protein diet. So that's a big fallacy which the moment a patient is diagnosed with CKD, hears about it. And he hears it not just from their families, friends, well-wishers, and people around, but even from a lot of physicians who have not really learned about nephrology, what their family physicians, they hear that no protein, protein nahi khana hai, and every little bit of protein which is there in the diet is completely stopped. And with weight loss, the patients see their creatine coming down, so they are happy that their reports are better, whereas physically they may be deteriorated. So it's really important that as early as possible, when a person is diagnosed with CKD, he needs to go to a dietitian, and not just he, but his whole family needs to go to the dietitian. Because the family gets input from 10 different places and they don't listen when the patient says कि हमें ये बोला है. So it really needs a whole family to be counseled along with the patient per se. A lot of prevalent myths around they hear on the internet or look on Google, the same simple things like low sodium salts. Now, I have had one patient who has come to emergency 4 times just because of hyperkalemia and having a heart rate which has slowed down just in nick of time that he could be dialyzed and he could survive. And the only reason being, initially first he took low sodium salts because one neighbor told him this salt is good because your BP is high. Then when he came out of that, his anemia was there, so somebody told him take a lot of dry fruits. So after 3 months he landed with hyperkalemia, again taking a lot of dry fruits. So all these well-wishers who give a lot of seemingly helpful advice land these patients into complications, problems. And so we need to really counsel these people very early and make them understand what the real reason why we tell low protein, what is low protein in India and what is low protein for the West is not the same. When these things are really clarified to the patient, that is when they understand what we are telling and the reason behind it. So there is never too late. The second worry which nephrologists have actually sending to a nutritionist. Now we have a large number of nutrition now aware. I think a lot of good work, partly from the Kidney Warriors Foundation also about renal diets. A lot of dietitians have that aware, but there are a lot of non-trained dietitians or non-qualified dietitians who label themselves as dietitians and then they are there waiting to counsel renal patients. And unfortunately, many of these unqualified, untrained dietitians also give advice which may not be scientifically correct as per what the patient requires. So a lot of times nephrologists have limitations as to where to send. A lot of us in bigger hospitals with trained dietitians have the privilege of having a good dietitian. So this gap of knowledge, which is I think being bridged by what we are doing today, is releasing these books in all these languages. So this gap I think is going to be filled not just for between the patients and the knowledge gap on diet, but also many dietitians have not been trained in renal diet to probably get more aware about what really renal diet is. So I again congratulate and thank KBA for this particular initiative, which has really grown fruit, and now we have it in I think 8 languages if I'm correct.
Thank you very much, Dr. Avinash, for taking us through that topic. And we've got a few more questions actually coming in from the community. So I think we'll build a complete different session for the Q&A towards the end, because I thought it'll just be one question, but I think we'll have a few more to kind of ask the doctors and the dietitians as well. So we will now move on to the most important part of this evening's program. I think something as a community we all are really excited to be a part of. And like I mentioned, this journey that started 5 years back, the first launch happened in 2019. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today it indeed a pleasure to launch with you our renal nutritional secret books in 8 different languages. So now it's actually going to be going out to every person who wants to read them in their local languages. So this has been a lot of effort going in to actually make this a dream come true. So wherever you are this evening, I'm going to request you to please put your hands together for a super hand of applause for the team behind KWF, for our nutritional specialist who's actually taken time and effort to make this such a beautiful venture that is going to make a difference in the journeys of so many on the journey of CKD. So I think many of our patients have been waiting for this moment to have a copy of theirs on the local languages. This is going to be available on Amazon and Flipkart. The English version is already available there, but these in local languages will also be available there. So thank you very much for joining us for this part of this event where we launch our renal nutrition guide. Thank you so much, Vasundhara, for taking us to that launch. And like I said, this is such an important moment for us as a community. And we've already had our doctor saying another important moment for us as a community is newly elected president of the ISN, Dr. Sanjeev Gulati, who's definitely not new to our community. He's been a part of our journey, and it's amazing how much he's actually supported us as a community. And this important moment, who would be the better person to actually share this moment and a lot more love to the community than Dr. Sanjeev Gulati himself. So, Doc, on to you.
Thank you, Marianne. And I think this is the official book. It is, I think, an excellent piece of work. It fills a much needed, gap in knowledge that was there, because diet is unique to every country, to every part of the country. And also, so this addresses the Indian need of the diet, and that too in the local language. So that is an amazing job. It's been a lot of hard work, but let me tell you that, diet remains a very important part of our therapy in our day-to-day practice. And I tell you, I spend at least 40 to 50% of my time talking to the patient about diet, because there's so much of misinformation that is there on the social media. And a lot of so that's another part I think I leave it to you all to address, because today, if you are not there on the internet, you're just, so the second part also should be done, that there should be a panel discussion addressing these questions, which should be put on the YouTube, because there is to address this, misinformation that is there. Incidentally, the theme for this year's World Kidney Day is also Kidney Health for All, bridging the knowledge gap. And knowledge is the true power, So we have to impart appropriate knowledge to all our patients, because as Vishwanath rightly said, you have patients at different extremes. At one extreme, they will eat and put them into a metabolic syndrome. At the other end, and which is the vast majority, I think, or a significant number, at least in our population, they hardly eat anything and they become frail, which is a big risk. And when you ask these people who advise them, let me tell you, everyone except the nutritionist or the doctor is the one that they are listening to, their neighbors, their relatives, and whatnot. And as I said, the social media. And the result is that they end up getting frail, repeated infections. So this, I think, is one of the most neglected aspects of renal therapy, and it adds a sense of completion to our efforts, in optimizing renal therapy for a vast subset of patients. And once again, I would like to congratulate Kidney Warriors Foundation, which has been doing a yeoman's work. Vasundhara, Marianne, all of you, it's been a great pleasure and privilege for me to be personally associated with you all, and wishing you all the best and looking forward to further such efforts so that we can together combat this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gulati, for being with us today. It's indeed a pleasure to have you with us and share this moment with us as a community. So now we actually move on to hear from our nutritional specialists themselves. So first we have Omar Maheshwari, who's actually going to be talking to us on something really important. Why is it sensible for us to make changes in our diet? So Omar, can I request you to please address the community?
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you so much. Namaste, everyone. I'm wishing you a pleasant evening to one and all here. So as she said, why is diet so crucial in kidney diseases? It's a topic that I'm going to talk about. I'm so thankful to the Kidney Warrior Foundation for having me to discuss on this topic today. So as soon as one is diagnosed with CKD, people wonder why there are so many diet restrictions that's put in. To understand this better, I would like to take back you to our school days where we can recall the functions of the kidneys first. Yes, right? As soon as you talk about kidneys, the first function that comes is excretion, right? Yes, you're there. So what does the kidney excrete? It excretes water, it excretes toxins, it excretes metabolic waste like urea and creatinine, which are the end products of the protein metabolism. And also it excretes excess nutrients that is not required by the body. Then it is a fluid and electrolyte balance that is required to maintain your body very well. So the actual amount of fluid a body should contain, and this calls in for the balance between the potassium and the sodium. Then it also helps in blood pressure regulation. It is a major part, kidney is a major part in metabolism of vitamin D, and also to create iron, utilize the iron in creation of the hemoglobin. So these are the major functions that's related to the metabolism. Now just imagine if the kidneys are, affected and their function slows down, all these metabolic function also slows down. So that is why diet restrictions steps in. So how does the diet is planned? It is planned to relieve the symptoms like what all they get: acidity, anxiousness, vomiting sensation, giddiness, high blood pressure, high urea, creatinine, all the symptoms. Then minimize the health risks and also to slow down the progression of the kidney disease. This is very, very important. And I'm specific that each and every person's diet is highly individualized. Nobody can copy one from, if somebody is following a specific pattern, it is only for him or her. Nobody can copy that because everything depends upon the patient's condition and the level of the CKD. So how does it go about? As everyone knows, the first thing that comes is the restricted protein, which means the protein has to be given the damage. The end products, the urea and the creatinine, will not be excreted. So it starts accumulating. To lower the load of the kidneys, the protein has to be restricted. I repeat, it has to be restricted, and it is not avoided. It is very, very crucial. When the protein is avoided, as Dr. Vishwanath says, it lands up in muscle wasting and you get prone to infections and fragility sets in and lot of disturbances happen. So progression will be very faster if you avoid protein. So protein has to be taken in a restricted quantity. How much is that restriction? So this is based upon the level of the CKD the person is in, the height and the weight of an individual. So this will be prescribed by your nephrologist or your renal dietitian. And then you have to take sufficient calories as recommended by your renal dietitian, because only when you have sufficient calories, the protein will be able to do its own function. So calories are also very important. Then fluid restriction. Fluid is not restricted to everybody. It is exclusively based on the urine output. So if one's urine output slows down, then the fluid restriction steps in, and the restricted amount of fluid again will be prescribed by the nephrologist or the renal dietitian. As the CKD progresses, there will be the excess nutrients we were talking, right? The kidney also excretes excess nutrients. So excess amount of potassium will not be excreted by the kidneys. So it will start building up once the CKD progresses. So then potassium restrictions will start on. And sodium restrictions will also start when the blood pressure goes out of exclusively out of control, and when the creatinine levels also increases uncontrollably. Then vitamin D and iron supplements are recommended, because vitamin D cannot be supplied through food, and it is a sunshine vitamin. Iron supplements are also recommended because all the foods that are rich in iron are also rich in phosphorus and potassium. Hence, those foods will be restricted to those patients. Thus, the iron supplements are recommended. So once you figure out your individualized diet plan from your renal dietitian, and with the help of your nephrologist and your renal dietitian, kindly follow through it, because this is very, very important, and strong evidences continue to support the importance of the diet meeting the daily requirement. That's very important. Your daily requirement should be met in prevention and progression of the kidney disease. And the medical nutrition therapy with a renal dietitian is a critical aspect in management of intervention for the CKD. So these tips with lot more informations and lot more varieties and lot more options are available in the book Renal Secrets, which is available in 8 different Indian regional languages. Make use of it, to safely add variety to your diet, and also to enjoy your meals. Again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uma Maheshwari, for giving us that input. So we had Ms. Uma talk to us about an overall understanding of renal diet and why do we change. But we now move on to a critical topic that is probably discussed the moment you enter and you said that you are diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. Fluid management, which is one of the most important things we alter, and it becomes even more critical when we get on dialysis, and then changes a little bit when we become a transplanted patient. So we have our dietitian Sunita Rao, who's actually going to be advising us on fluid management. And can I request Sunita Rao to please take over?
Hello, everybody, and hi, Marianne. Thank you for having me here today. And I must thank Mrs. Vasundhara and the Kidney Warriors Foundation, every Kidney Warrior, for this long, wonderful journey, this 5 years. We just started with some thoughts, and then we moved on to conferences, and then to the book, and it was really a very, very, very wonderful feeling to be contributing to this purpose. And so I thank you all again. So today's topic that I'm going to talk about is on fluid management. I'll just keep it short so that we can have questions later. So now, somewhere down the CKD lane, we always come across one most difficult thing to handle, and that is fluid restriction. Now, it could be every stage of CKD, probably the fluid restriction will differ, and the case will differ, as it will differ as per the case. But then it could be, the symptoms could be as simple as, swelling in the legs or swelling in the lower limbs, or it could be as life-threatening as, the fluid filled in the lungs. Whatever it is, when you have to control your fluids in your diet, it becomes very difficult. And most importantly, because when there is so much of nausea, or when you don't want to eat food because of the high creatinine, all you want to do is drink something, and then we say, oh no, you can't take so much fluids, you will have to restrict that also. So it really is a challenge. So there are a few tips that we can follow, and basically awareness and understanding what it is, why it is, helps us to go through this difficult process. So now what amount of fluid restriction you have will depend upon the stage of CKD, the amount of urine output, and also if there are other symptoms like, as I said, swelling or breathlessness or this pleural effusion or fluid filled in the lungs. And then your nephrologist will tell you how much fluids you can take per day. Now, what do we mean when we say fluids? It just doesn't mean water, but it also means everything that comes as a liquid at room temperature. So it could be the tea, coffee, juices, porridges, and also anything that is liquid at room temperature. That could include ice candies or ice cream. So when you leave an ice candy on the table for some time, it melts and becomes liquid, right? So even that you will have to measure in the amount of fluids that have been allowed or you can safely consume to keep your symptoms controlled. So the list goes on, you actually have to know that the liquids that you take in your diet in every day, like it starts from the coffee or the tea in the morning, and the water that you take for taking your tablets, your medications, and also if you are on any renal nutritional supplement, like a protein supplement, even that you will have to count in your fluid intake. So the dals, the sambar, the soups, and all these, the gravies, the thin gravies, all these come under liquids. So what you could do to manage this easily is measure up the amount of liquids that you have to take in a day and divide it into the water portion and the other liquids separately. So if you know that you have to take this amount of water in the entire day, so you have this amount, for example, if you have 750 ml of water that you could take in the entire 24 hours, and you have it already filled in your water bottle and kept ready, through the day, you know how much you have consumed and how much more you have. So you can regulate it much more easily. And also, you have a plan that you're going to take coffee at this time of the day or tea at this time of the day. Use smaller cups at home so that you can take a smaller portion at a time, and you don't overdo in every serving that you take. So smaller cups or smaller glasses help a lot. You can sip through your liquids and not gulp it down. So that also helps you to mindfully take in the liquids that you are allowed. And then keep yourself in a cool environment. For example, if your office room or the room or your home where you spend most of the time, if it is in a cooler, if the environment, the temperature is cooler around you with the fan and the AC, and if it's not very hot, then probably you won't feel very thirsty. So that's another thing that will not urge you to drink too much liquids. You can actually suck on a small piece of ice through the day, so it actually makes your mouth feel better. You can spray some water into your mouth, cold water into your mouth, so to keep the mouth moist. Otherwise, you could also gargle some cold water and then spit it out, so that you actually don't consume that water, but it keeps the mouth moist and feels good. You can also suck on some sugarless candy or sugarless mint, or chew on some sugarless gum. This can help you, overcome that urge to drink too much water. Apart from all this, there's one important thing actually that we have to realize. The more salt that you eat in your diet, the more thirsty you're going to get. We all know the saying, the water follows salt, right? So most often the diet also comes with a salt prescription. So if you're allowed that much salt in a day, make sure you stick to that salt intake, so that it's not only your blood pressure, it also helps you to control the water intake or the fluid intake. Because the more salt you take, it retains the water in your body, and it also makes you more thirsty. So even during dialysis, when you have to mind the weight gain between the two dialysis, it's most often just not the fluids that you consume within those 48 hours, it's also the salt or the salty food, the fried food that comes with too much salt, or the processed food that comes with the hidden salt. And also maybe some of the gravies and the curries that are so spicy that you don't realize that has so much salt in it. So if you follow your salt intake well through through the day, then you can also manage the fluid intake in the day. So these are some of the tips that you could follow to manage. Of course, every case is different and every prescription will be different. And based on the prescription, your meal plan, water, fluid allowance, salt allowance will differ. So it is case-based, individualized, but these are the general tips that you can follow to manage the fluid intake through the day. And in the nutritional secrets that we have listed down many more tips. And also, it has come out in 8 languages. It's a wonderful thing. And I think all of you will have access to this. And I congratulate Kidney Warriors for doing a wonderful job on this. And thank you, Marianne. I hand it back to you for the next session.
Thank you very much, Sunita, for touching upon this important topic of fluid management, and in that short term, actually bringing in the most important point, the connection of salt with fluid management, which many people tend to miss out in connection with water. And we now move on to our next speaker. My next speaker is something that I'm also very curious to actually listen to, because when we talk about nutritional diet or changing our diet when we start our journey in CKD, the first thing we talk about is protein, and then we touch upon a little bit of iron, but very few times we actually think of this point, phosphorus. So here we have Swati actually telling us why you should not ignore your phosphorus levels. So for Swati, can you please tell us? I'm super excited to see what you have to share with us.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to be on this forum, and it's been a wonderful, eventful journey the last couple of years. It makes us feel very humble. It's a lovely opportunity for us to have done so much knowledge sharing, and to see it in a printed format and to see it being available to so many people far and wide. It truly is heartwarming. So as Marianne, you rightly said, phosphorus is definitely something that not everybody looks into. Patients are really, first of all, bothered about, water. That's their first concern, and Sunita has beautifully explained that. Omar has touched upon, the general, the functioning of kidney and how it's easy for people to wonder, when it's just excretion, why are we so bothered about everything else? So coming to phosphorus, it's one of those minerals that are very freely available in the body. In fact, large portion of our bones and teeth are, phosphorus is what makes up most of it. And healthy kidneys are able to excrete the excess phosphorus in the bloodstream. Normally, kidneys work with phosphorus, calcium, and vitamin D to set a balance to keep bones health and teeth strong and healthy. But when there is an elevated phosphorus level in the bloodstream, and we define that as a number over 5 milligrams per deciliter in the blood reports, this is called hyperphosphatemia. So when there is hyperphosphatemia, there is a little bit of an imbalance in the system, and for the system to work the balance back into place, it starts to secrete a particular hormone in excess called the PTH, that is the parathyroid hormone. And once there is an excess parathyroid hormone in the bloodstream, it tends to pull out calcium, weakening the bones, making it brittle, just so that it can manage some sort of a balance. But this is not going to happen because of the excess phosphorus. So we'll have to make sure that the diet is in place, so you don't, first of all, reach a stage where phosphorus is high, and then you have to bring it back to normal, right? So some of the common symptoms of elevated phosphorus levels in the system are, it starts off basically, I think, as simple as itching. There's pain because of the weak and brittle bones. Bones tend to fracture easily. These are some of the most common symptoms that we see. Of course, there's vascular disease as well because of the calcification. we do see a lot of cardiovascular disorders because of elevated phosphorus levels. So where does phosphorus really come from? So phosphorus is very easily available in foods and in the drinks that we have. There are two kinds. There's inorganic and organic. And it's safe to say that the organic phosphorus is far better than inorganic phosphorus, because organic phosphorus is what you see in natural sources. This is what you will find in rye, in your whole grains, in nuts, in egg yolk, in red meat. All these are rich sources of organic phosphorus, which is safer than inorganic, because inorganic phosphorus is what you see in all artificially synthesized preservatives. So you'll see a lot of it in processed foods, packaged foods, basically anything that you would snip open a packet and eat directly from, or even partially cooked, ready to eat stuff. So inorganic phosphorus is a little more difficult on the kidneys, and it's 100% absorbed. So the easiest way, step one to deal with elevated phosphorus is to avoid anything that has preserved and a packaged dietary intake, to avoid that. And you are already on a better track when you start off having fresh foods and natural foods. Diet can't really be the only thing that we do when it comes to renal nutrition therapy. Alongside of that, there is something called a phosphate binder, which is advised to be taken along with food. So phosphate binders tend to bind the excess phosphorus and then excrete it. This is it kind of helps the patient still meet their protein requirements, because as we all know, the three P's go along together. That's phosphorus, protein, and potassium. And all of us know how important protein is, be it low protein diet or high protein diet. It's very, very important in a renal diet. So we avoid malnutrition. Phosphate binders are something that would definitely help. That apart, one needs to exercise regularly and also stay active, because when you do this, you tend to shed off a lot of phosphorus from the system. Apart from this, I think the nephrologists also have some supplements which are prescribed, which help the body use calcium in a better fashion. Certain easy swaps are what I will like to mention now. If you're somebody who likes eggs, give up having the whole egg, have just egg whites. If you would like to have something cold during summer, don't have an ice cream, have something like a homemade popsicle. Avoid dark colored colas, have lemonade instead. Things like processed cheese should definitely be avoided, have paneer. So these are small changes that, we'd like to mention in a short span of time. We'd like to elaborate, but we really don't have that much of time to elaborate on everything. These are just basic swaps that would help. Now, as a dietitian, I do explain this to patients, but oftentimes in the last couple of years that we've been practicing, patients come with your own set of challenges, and it's not right for us to ignore their challenges. The first challenge is always about the number of medications they're already on, and then they have to add this. Sometimes they tend to add the binder at the wrong time. Ideally, a binder should be taken along with the meal. You see them popping it after a meal or before a meal. So that doesn't work in the 100% way that it's working. Another challenge is for them to carry it when they go outside and eat. Another challenge when they go outside is because these days, all the food that is available in restaurants has some amount of processed sauces being added. There are hidden sauces. And the biggest challenge is the fact that there is no need for the phosphorus to be mentioned on any labeling, right? So most often it's not visible. So when a patient reaches out for something as an occasional treat, they are oblivious to the content of phosphorus in it. And by and large, any packed food is very, very rich in phosphorus. So that is a strong message that I'd like to put out, just make your own food as much as possible. Try to keep it natural as much as possible. Hard as it is, it's a huge, valuable change. There's no denying that renal diets are one of the most restrictive diets. All of us know, I mean, Omar's mentioned how many restrictions we have in the diet together. Something as basic as water, something as basic as salt has to be restricted, as Sunita mentioned. So I gladly agree that phosphorus is not an easy thing to maneuver and handle. But I'd like to reiterate that there are all of us, you know, the renal dietitians, the nephrologists, guide you through this and help patients, you know, eat well, manage their restrictions, and still stay healthy. So the need for this book, I think, mainly arises at this juncture where there's so much available on the internet, which is not really right. Some of it is right, but patients are worried about whether they should follow it or not. So I think the book has come at a time when, you know, like technology is at its prime, everybody's disseminating knowledge through this. So this is a book that I think will definitely clarify doubts for most people. It's handy, it keeps the information very concise, it's not elaborate, it's easy to understand. And the biggest blessing is that it's in so many regional languages. So everybody gets to, you know, take a look at it. Before I leave, one last thing that I'd like to say is that in phosphorus, especially, the saying a stitch before 9 saves time is definitely something that everybody has to follow, because once phosphorus does its damage, reversal is not something that is easy. Hyperphosphatemia is painful. It's embarrassing for patients because it causes them itching. And by the time they reach this stage, there's very little that diet can really help. Maybe in the initial stages, yes, some amount of reversal will help, but it's not something that we oftentimes see. So definitely, please follow diet. All of us are around to guide and help. You could always reach out. Kidney Warriors Foundation is doing an excellent job spreading awareness, and we're glad to be a part of it. And I think that's about all. It's been wonderful also sharing the portal with such, it's really, I should say, an august, you know, company. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm glad I could give my part to it.
Thank you so much, Swati, for so beautifully touching upon that, that topic. And we now move on. Well, that brings us to the end of our doctors and our dietitians presenting what they have in store for you. And we move on to the second part of this session, which will be made shorter because we're running short of time, and we still continue with Dr. Vishwanath, we have Dr. Avinash, we have our dietitians, we have Dr. Sanjeev Gulati. Continue to share the screen with us. And we're going to go with at least one question for the members of our panel. So the first thing, Dr. Vishwanath, I'm going to go with the first question with you. Doc, since you already mentioned when you spoke in your session today that when patients start dialysis, right, maintaining weight is such an important part of that journey. However, because of the restrictions, they tend to lose a lot of weight. So we have a patient who actually put this question up and says, what would you be your advice for somebody who's losing weight because of the restrictions that they have on dialysis?
In fact, many times in our busy schedule, they will be on very strict diet on stage 4 and stage 5 CKD, not on dialysis. And many people will continue the diet when they are on dialysis, same diet which they were taking before dialysis. In fact, after dialysis, it has to be exactly opposite to what they were doing. What we normally tell in our general practice is you can eat everything except watch for your potassium, phosphorus, and fluid. Other than that, you have to eat well. In fact, we tell them to be good on dialysis, you have to eat well. So the only way to do that is to increase protein intake. And as suggested by Swati and other team, definitely we need to watch phosphorus and potassium, but we should not restrict too much. Second thing is we can always consider giving some protein supplements, whichever has low potassium. Many times the minute we say protein supplement, they'll start taking whatever is available in the market. That has to be vetted by our nutritionist, whether it is appropriate for our dialysis patients or not. And of course, they have to take more protein. Normal protein recommended by us for all dialysis patients are at least 1.2 gram per kg. And CAPD, they have to take much more higher than that.
Thank you, Doc, for addressing that question, and such an important point that when you're moving to one stage of CKD to the second stage of CKD, it is so true that most people take it for granted that it's the same to be followed. And that actually brings me to the next question to Dr. Sanjeev Gulati. If you're there, you can help us with this question, or we can ask Dr. Vishwanath to continue with this answer as well. So when a patient is moving from one stage of CKD and moving to the next stage of CKD, that is getting on dialysis, or when they finish dialysis and moving on to the transplant stage, how do we make it compulsory that as a part of the protocol, the patient has to meet the renal dietitian? Because I don't think this has become a part of the protocol. At least I'm not very sure we follow this in India, but the importance of having the dietitian as a part of this journey throughout with the patient, as important as it to meet the nephrologist, I think it's important for us to keep in touch because they are another important member of this whole journey, right? So how do we actually bring about this change and educate our patients and also get our nephrologists? Because I think you also spoke about a younger nephrologist. I think Dr. Sanjeev, you spoke about a younger nephrologist actually having this just as a glimpse. And not everybody really takes this so important and actually talks about it. I think the more they are experienced, I think I've heard senior doctors concentrate so much on diet, right? So Doc, how do we bridge this gap in terms of from the doctor's perspective and educating our patients? Dr. Sanjeev, we'll have your take on this and we'll have Dr. Vishwanath's take since Dr. Vishwanath is already on the floor. Okay. Between you all.
You're on mute, sir. You're muted. Yeah.
Yes, Marian, can you just repeat? There was some audio.
So a few things, Doc. One is the need for educating our patients as they move from one stage of CKD to another stage of CKD. Why is it so important for them to constantly meet dietitians? Because in the previous answer, when people tend to lose weight on dialysis, Dr. Vishwanath said that most of the time they're carrying on the diet that they had on stage 4 and 5, which is actually a complete reversal when they start dialysis. So, and then again, when you go to transplant, we have a lot of people still watching and bleaching their food and maintaining their potassium, which is again another change on the diet. So I'm wondering why, or I'm not even sure, I might be ignorant whether it is practiced in India, the renal dietitian is a part of an important role for a patient. Like we say, meet your doctors every 6 weeks, take your blood check every one month. How do we educate our patients to actually have the renal dietitian a part of this? Meet them once in 6 months, meet them once in a year. And Dr. Vishwanath also spoke about this part of younger younger nephrologists have this one chapter where nutrition is a part of their curriculum. How much are they taking this topic very, very seriously? How do we get them to understand that they bring in a dietitian as a specialized person to help the patient and insist that the patient meets a dietitian and has them a part of their journey? So can you actually talk about all this together, please?
So I think there is no doubt that this nutritionists are an integral part of our team. I've had the privilege of working in both Canada, UK, Australia, and each and every visit, after seeing the nephrologist, we used to send the patient over to the nutritionist because, you know, the nutrition has to be tailored. It has to be fine-tuned depending on your electrolyte values. What is your phosphorus level? What is your potassium level? And as the kidney function worsens, all these electrolytes are going to change. And as you transit through different stages of CKD onto dialysis and then to transplant, the diet is totally different. So not once a year, I think it should be at each and every visit. The only challenge here is that in India, maybe the nutritionist could educate me, but till a couple of years back, there was no formal training program in renal nutrition. And in fact, whenever we sent our patients over to the dietitians, they ended up, you know, with a lot of misinformation. And that is, I think, a challenge. So not everyone has the luxury of a a trained renal dietitian, and they should be talking to them much more frequently, almost each and every, at least once a month, I would feel that they should be talking to, rather, as I said earlier, other than the nutritionist and the doctor, everybody is talking to them about their diet. And I think if we have to improve the outcomes of these patients, the nutritionists are integral part of our team. In all kinds of, medicine, the Hippocrates, who's the father of medicine, said, "Let food be thy medicine and not medicine be thy food." So that is how important nutrition is in a holistic management of patient of kidney disease.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev. Dr. Vishwanath, would you want to add something on this?
Yeah, I completely agree with Gulati sir. Many times we may not have a luxury of having separate renal dietitian. In our unit, we have renal dietitian who compulsorily should visit any recently initiated dialysis patient, because diet, as we discussed, will change after initiation. And on dialysis also, nutritionists should do rounds, like what consultants do rounds, and then do away with the misconceptions and what they are eating, what they are not eating. That is very, very crucial. And as sir suggested, many times we may not have the luxury of having a renal dietitian. Maybe nutritionists and dietitians should educate us on how to go about in specifically concentrating on renal diet for general dietitians. Whenever they go for general dietitians and then they come back to us, they are fully confused. I need to sit and unlearn them so that we tell them, forget about what they told and you follow this, what I'm telling. So that's how it is in our general practice. So I would definitely seek all of your help to see how much we can train general dietitian with respect to renal diet.
Thank you, Dr. Vishwanath, for giving us this answer, because this was a question that was always in my head. Why is there not a bridge between a nephrologist and the dietitians? But today we get to understand, because I think it's maybe a specialized subject now, or people are at least getting aware there's somebody called a renal dietitian that has a specialty by itself. And here we have three beautiful women with us. So people from the community, you have no reason to get your diet wrong, because we have enough of people to support you with this subject. Dr. Avinash, there's a question for you. How to improve health when detected in stage 5, so dialysis can be better? And with regards to, can you address this question from a diet perspective, Doc?
Okay, thank you for the question. It's a very vast and a complex question, actually, even from the point of diet. If you consider a patient is coming for the first time in CKD stage 5, the CKD stage 5, whether it is done on dialysis stage or even CKD stage 5, not yet requiring dialysis, again, there are two different patients. So if it's someone who is CKD stage 5 but not yet requiring dialysis, that person may continue to require protein restriction. He will need to be assessed for his acidosis, the level of protein, so his serum albumin would be important, plus what is phosphorus, and many of the other parameters which will indicate what kind of a diet that person needs. Again, most of the things will come down to phosphorus and protein, and the big conflict happens where most of the protein sources are also high in phosphorus. So to balance a reasonable protein intake with restricted phosphorus becomes a challenge, and that's where a trained renal nutritionist comes into the picture. Now, a second set of patients would be more CKD5 and need immediate dialysis. Now, here again, the picture is going to change over days to weeks. Once the person is initiated in dialysis, his appetite will improve, food intake will go in. So when at presentation that person is malnourished, his albumin levels are low, he is wasted, that person will require a very different kind of a diet, a different kind of a calorie intake versus a patient who is initiating dialysis but probably is obese, overweight, his albumin levels are good. So there is no single sure shot formula which fits everyone. And this again was highlighted in by the previous speaker also. There is no single formula. We will have to individualize the patient, look at all the parameters, and then fine tune the diet prospective for that patient along with the medicine management of that person.
Thank you, Dr. Avinash, for addressing that question. And now we move on to our dietitians. We have a few questions on fluid management, and Sunita, since you addressed the topic, I'll post the first question to you.
Yes.
So we have a patient who's asked to restrict fluid to 1 liter, but the patient is able to still pee, maybe to about 500 ml. So is that normal? That's what the patient wants to know.
Yeah, so actually I wanted to mention this during my talk, but again, as I said, each case is different, but generally per se, if you see, it will be urine output plus 500 ml is the general rule that we go by. I mean, even the nephrologist goes by, but then if the patient has some other superimposed conditions like a cardiac condition, or there is too much edema, or there is fluid in the lungs or breathing difficulty, then the restriction could be a little more tighter till the patient revives from that or recovers from that acute condition. So now in this fluid restriction of 500 urine output plus this particular case plus 500 ml, that would be 1 liter per day, would probably be what his nephrologist has prescribed for this particular case. So this is generally how we go: urine output plus 500 ml of fluids.
I'm going to ask another question, because a very interesting question actually. Weight gain on dialysis has been 1 kg, okay, per day. How does a patient know whether the weight gain is from the food or the weight gain is from the water when the patient does not have edema? Doctors, if you all want to add on to this answer also, please feel free. We'll have Sunita from a diet perspective give us an answer. Yeah, we'll go with you, Sunita, and if the doctors want to add on something, we'll welcome their answer.
Sure. So generally the weight, the weighing is done at a particular time of the day, the specific, always the same time of the day, so that you know that what is the food intake that has happened. So at the beginning of the day, when your stomach is empty, then that's your weight. And at the end of the day, when you've had all your meals, definitely that the food that you have eaten would add to your weight. But otherwise, if you're weighing yourself at the beginning of at the start of the day, then the weight gain you have can be attributed to the fluid gain. And also during dialysis, the amount of fluid that is removed, and whether the patient has cramps or is comfortable during the fluid removal, all this determines, and I'm sure the doctors can explain this better, but from the diet point of view, weighing yourself at the same time of the day on empty stomach will tell you actually whether your weight gain is due to food or it is due to water.
Dr. Avinash or Dr. Vishwanath, anybody like to add something to that?
Mariam, it's a very confusing topic for patients. When we tell them that the initial dialysis, a lot of patients come with big malnourished or underweight, and then they start eating after they start on dialysis and the diet improves. Now the question for them is, now my weight has increased by 4 kgs on dialysis. Is it dry weight which has increased, or is it the food which is the water? So now the fluid intake which causes the weight to increase will be on a very short-term basis. So patient loses weight on dialysis by 2 kgs, 3 kgs, and then in the next dialysis session he is again gained 3 kgs. So this kind of short-term fluctuation will not happen due to nutritional improvement. It will happen because of fluid retention. Whereas the dry weight will not increase in a period of matter of days. It will take weeks and months for the dry weight to increase. So first difference would be this, which will differentiate whether a person's weight which has increased is fluid or it is weight. How quick the weight has increased. A quick increase in weight in a matter of days is not going to be a nutritional or healthy weight gain. It's more likely to be fluid. Second is, as it was mentioned, the symptoms of dialysis. If a person weight has increased, but he feels healthier, he feels better, he feels more energetic, there is no swelling anywhere, such a person is more likely to be increasing his dry weight. Whereas a person whose weight increases and the person feels weak when the weight has increased, he is breathless, he has swelling when he lies down, he becomes short of breath. These are signs that a person is retaining fluid, and that is the reason for his weight gain. So these are two things which would suggest as whether it is a healthy dry which has increased or it is a fluid increase. But beyond that, there is a gray area which can be very difficult to identify, and that only comes by a nephrologist who examines the patient and looks at his previous charts and present weight and assess the patient clinically and figure out what is really happening.
Thank you, Dr. Avinash. Dr. Vishwanath?
Yeah, I completely agree with Dr. Avinash. Sometimes it may be very difficult to assess what is the dry weight, what we call as. And many of our patients, especially long-term dialysis patients, are obsessed with this dry weight. Even if they've gained weight, they won't allow you to reduce the amount of fluid removal. I had one lady who used to come and insist for 3 liters of fluid removal. She was so much obsessed that her fistula closed because so much of fluid was removed. So better we go by what we feel clinically, as Dr. Avinash mentioned. Now we have some apparatus called bioimpedance, which is available, which will help in assessing the fluid, excess fluid in a patient. Most of the places it is available uniformly. In fact, we had done a study and sent for publication on this. Bioimpedance is the machine which will help to fix the dry weight, and it will actually reduce the number of errors. We had another one doctor's father who was also insisting on similar, and he used to come with hypotensions repeatedly. Then we had to prove to him that this is not your dry weight, this is your dry weight after doing bioimpedance, and then we were able to convince him not to remove excess fluid. So if we are in doubt, probably these apparatus will help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vishwanath. Let's take a question on phosphorus. Swati, this one's for you. I'm on dialysis for 2 months now. My phosphorus shot up to 7.8 from 5.6 in a month. And the patient agrees it's come from a place of freedom of eating and overdoing it. So can you tell them why they shouldn't do this and what are they getting into?
You say they've been initiated on dialysis, Marianne?
Yes, on 2 months on dialysis, yes.
Okay. Obvious case scenario, we see this happen all the time because initial stages of CKD, their appetite is low. They don't eat very well. And they are, of course, they do feel like dialysis is something that's going to, give them all the freedom to eat what they want. So they think the machine is literally replacing the, kidneys. So they tend to eat more than required of the restricted food, and they do end up with elevated phosphorus levels. Now, this is the time they need to check it. Like I said in my talk, if they do not check it at the early stages, once the damage is done, reversal is difficult. So they will have to restrict your phosphorus intake from diet. So a detailed analysis of a recall to see whether, they're eating over and above the requirement would help us understand whether it's just because of their dietary intake, or then the nephrologists can take their call on, prescribing a binder or the other supplements that would help the system use phosphorus and calcium better.
Interesting question, but I'm going to ask this question because I think most patients may not really want to ask this question on a public forum, but somebody actually asked this question. As part of the diet, occasionally is 30 to 60 ml of alcohol allowed?
You want me to take that question, or do you want?
For some reason, the patient very says single malt. Omar, will you like to take that question, and then doctors can give from a clinical perspective their views on this once in a while only. I'm not sure the patient's considering this as a part of the fluid intake, but
yeah, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, but on dialysis itself, what would your intakes be on taking limited amount of alcohol occasionally?
See, according to me, I will say it as a big no. because we tend to avoid, unwanted calories, and adequate calories are essential. And if the patient is on dialysis, as all the dietitians and nephrologists mentioned here, it is not that you have freedom to eat everything. You still have some restrictions that needs to be followed. Be it anything, alcohol is alcohol.
But what if that 30 ml actually brings some kind of happiness to the person's life? And if it's like once a week or once in a month, Dr. Vishwanath.
Exactly. If I can, I won't agree with Uma. We had two professors when I was doing my DNB residency. We had two professors. Senior professor will come and tell no alcohol and walk out. Other professor will stay back and tell the patient. He was very elderly man, 85-year-old man on CAPD. So he wanted some alcohol, as you mentioned, at the end of the life, at least let him enjoy his life. So other professor will tell, you take 30 ml, don't put water, only put ice and take. So this is to restrict fluid. So probably, I don't know if Sanjeev sir agrees, most of us are not very much against alcohol. We are all against tobacco. So even chewing tobacco, caney, all those things, we are much against, including the nashiam and things like that, what people take. Little bit of alcohol, let them enjoy. I'll give anecdotal one more example. One patient came and asked me, "What can I take single malt whiskey?" And I didn't know what it was. I am a teetotal. Then I had to ask my other professor, "What is single malt whiskey?" Then I told him, "You can take little bit." So maybe little bit of alcohol. Many studies have shown that it is good, red wine and things like that. But again, we tell them, make sure your volume comes in that, and take little bit, and don't tell that we allowed medically. So that's what we tell our patients. Sanjeev sir, Avinash, anything?
No, I agree with you, Vishwanath. See, these are patients, who are spending their lives on dialysis. It's a miserable world anyway, and they are subjected to so many, restrictions as such. So if within the limits of the fluid intake, if they can manage it, that's what I tell my patients. So the only thing I tell them is to stay away from wine and beer, which they end up taking a large amount, and whiskey, vodka, generally, 30 ml, as you rightly said, heavens are not going to fall. And that's why I request all our nutritionists to take a more humane approach, and be scientific. How much of 30 ml of alcohol, what it will not alter their potassium balance, it will not alter their fluid balance, it will not alter their phosphate balance. You can tell them which kind of alcohol to take and how often. Yes, if somebody says, yes, I want it daily, I'm certainly very stern about it. But if once in a week, he wants to enjoy his weekend, and if it gives him some sense of happiness, certainly, absolutely, yes.
Dr. Avinash, thank you, Dr. Sanjeev. Dr. Avinash, you had your hands up too, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with both Dr. Gulati and Dr. Vishwanath. And we really forget at certain time when we are treating our CKD patients that there is something called a quality of life. And when we plan a diet for them, when we plan a lifestyle for them, and when we plan restrictions for them, we also need to plan for them to have a cheap day and have a little good time so that they look forward to what they're having. If you are absolutely 100% stuck with, no, this cannot be done, this is 100% not allowed, then the person doesn't have something to look forward to. So having a small amount of alcohol once in a week in moderation is perfectly fine. If the patient is asking, can I have alcohol on dialysis, and he may be on dialysis in the dialysis unit, absolutely I say no. But yes, having once in a while on a weekend of 30 ml within the volume constraints, and they will not have those typical starters which they have with alcohol, which is something which may have a lot of salt. And so you need to have give an alternative in snacks what they can have when they want to have alcohol. So that is something which the dietitians probably can help us with, so that they can avoid all the high salt and other kind of stuff. But yes, having a little good quality of life in moderation is something we should plan as a part of CKD patients' lifestyle management.
And zero tolerance to smoking, I think we are unanimous about it. I think that part I would second what Vishwanath said, that it's zero tolerance there.
Thank you, Doc. Yes, more hands up. Yes, please.
Yeah. Just to add, agree 100% with nephrologists, no doubt about it. It's just that I think as dietitians, we tend to meet patients who, very, very literally you give them an inch and they take the whole yard. So when we tell them 30 ml, we never know whether they're taking the 30 ml. And I think when we've given them a diet plan, we're looking at every calorie being that nutrient dense. So for us, we're looking at alcohol being something that is, yes, of course, quality of life, no doubt about that. But what happens is dilution and the sides that go along with it. That is where, we have a huge challenge, because they're all salted, processed, high phosphorus, high potassium, just about everything. So I think for us to give prescription just randomly saying allowing alcohol, we may not do that. But I'd like to speak for the fraternity, saying we do take a recall, we speak, we see how disciplined they are, how how much they listen to us, and then of course we do allow it to them, not just as freely.
Is the bias
A lot of
because of
limitations.
lady dietitians or
No,
women
no,
dietitians or?
no, Dr.
No, we
Vishnu,
like
I
to
was
make it
exactly
easy for
what
them,
I
yes, but
Well, actually, I would like to add, we have so many patients who are very well, disciplined, and they do take, as you said, they do take, and they're limited to the 30 ml that they have been allowed, or they confess to have been taking, and they're doing well. So as you said, if other parameters are fine, and if they're sticking within the fluid intake, and then during, we actually do mention all these during the counseling, that the fluid intake and the kind of liquor, as you said, beer, would actually make it in many other ways difficult for them. So, and generally beer is consumed in big mugs and not in 30 ml. So these are the points we do look at when you say yes, and the family background that they come from. Many times when they are not so well aware of what's happening, if they don't belong to that class where they can understand things, then the moment you say, okay, yes, you can take once a week 30 ml, it would, the family that comes along with them for counseling will actually be telling us that no from behind, because you tell them, yes, doctor, and then they will go home and say the doctor has allowed. So we are going to have, and they're going to have it every day. They're going to overdo it. And the salty snacks, they want salted peanuts along with that. They want the fried food along with that. It just goes out of control. So I think it is definitely based on your, the expert experience that we have, is to see who is the patient sitting in front of you, whether he's going to understand what you say, and whether the rest of the condition in his lifestyle and in his diet are okay. Suppose somebody is highly diabetic and in the third, fourth stage where they really have to control their diabetes also, and they want to have beer, then I would say, hold on, wait, don't indulge in beer now, because we want your HbA1c to go down too. That's also one of our concerns. So probably you have to look at all these points before you say yes or no.
Thank you, Sunita. And just to end on a lighter note, because we're overshot the time, that if you've been a good girl or a boy, you get permission to have a 30 ml a week. So you better be good children, like the way Santa Claus is watching, your doctors and dietitians are watching. But yeah, on a human level, I think we kind of understand the holistic approach. But if you're a person who's going to take things for granted, and then it's going to be a big no-no. So at the end of it, good or bad, the patients are the ones dealing with the consequences of every action. So that kind of sums up everything. But since we overshot with time and we've got so many questions left, we're going to try to put it in the Kidney Warrior group and tag our dietitians on it, and probably we get some more answers for some questions. But on this note, we have come to the end of this session, and it's indeed a very, very proud day for us, because we launched 8 of our different languages, our nutritional secret books. I think for the first time, we're touching upon such detailed topics on nutrition together with the doctors. So that is another big sense of achievement for us today. So thank you, Dr. Sanjeev. Thank you, Dr. Vishwanath. Thank you, Dr. Avinash, to all our dietitians, Sunita, Swati, Omar, for joining us today. We hope to actually have this discussion and keep it as a healthy topic that we will actually discuss for our patient community, bridging this gap for for the benefit of our patients between the doctors and the dietitians. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a
Thank you.
nice
Thank you,
weekend.
Marianne.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.